June 24, 2025 began like any other day in the remote north. At Wiley Post Will Rogers Memorial Airport in Utqiagvik, Alaska, the morning routine unfolded as usual. The air was crisp, tinged with the scent of frost, and the hum of turboprop engines was a familiar comfort to all who worked and traveled here. Suddenly, without warning, the engines fell silent, their steady drone replaced by an uneasy quiet. An urgent announcement echoed through the terminal. Every flight was grounded, all operations suspended until further notice. The airport was shutting down, effective immediately, leaving no time for questions or explanations. Passengers looked up in disbelief, confusion and worry spreading rapidly among the crowd. Staff moved quickly, concern etched on their faces as they tried to manage the growing uncertainty. Whispers rippled through the terminal. Was it a threat, a massive failure, or something even worse? No planes took off or landed. The community's vital lifeline to the outside world was suddenly cut. Outside, ground crews froze in place, baggage carts were abandoned mid-route, and fuel trucks sat idle, engines cooling in the morning air. The airfield, usually alive with motion and noise, became eerily still, as if time itself had stopped. The wind whistled across the empty runway, amplifying the tension and uncertainty that hung in the air. This wasn't a weather delay, this was a full lockdown, with security officers blocking entrances and exits. Digital boards flashed, first delayed, then canceled. The official silence only fueled the growing anxiety. For those trapped inside, and for the small town that depended on the airport, the unexplained shutdown marked the beginning of a long, uncertain ordeal. The sense of isolation grew acute, as people realized just how cut off they had become. The world outside seemed to hold its breath, waiting for answers that never came. The normal rhythm of travel and connection was broken, replaced by a heavy, unsettling stillness. No one knew when or even if that sense of normalcy would be restored. The silence that filled the terminal was more alarming than any noise, a stark reminder of just how quickly everything can change. The chaos wasn't caused by a bomb or malfunction. A massive grizzly bear had breached the airport's perimeter and wandered onto the runway. A pilot on final approach spotted the bear and aborted his landing, voice urgent over the radio. This was no small black bear, this was an apex predator weighing nearly 800 pounds. Its presence was a catastrophic security failure. Airports are designed to keep wildlife out, but the bear found a weak point in the fence, hidden by a lingering snowdrift. It pushed through, stepping from tundra to tarmac. The shutdown was the only option. A collision would be devastating. The bear ambled across the runway, curious but unpredictable. At one point it reared up, awe-inspiring and terrifying for those watching. The animal was disoriented, making it even more dangerous. The challenge? Remove the bear safely, without harm to people or animal. The wild had crossed the line and the airport was at its mercy. Inside the terminal, confusion quickly turned to a mix of fear and mounting frustration. The uncertainty in the air was almost tangible, as people tried to make sense of the unfolding situation. Passengers pressed against the windows, filming the surreal scene outside, hoping to capture something that would help them understand or explain the chaos. "I've seen bears, but never here," said Samuel, an Inupiat elder, his voice carrying both awe and concern as he watched the commotion. The fear was real. What if the bear somehow got inside? The thought sent a ripple of anxiety through the crowd. Tourists sat stranded, worried about missed connections, ruined plans, and the uncertainty of when they'd be able to leave. Staff moved through the crowds, handing out snacks and bottled water, doing their best to hide their own stress and keep people calm. The lack of answers was hardest for everyone. Questions piled up, but information was scarce and rumors spread quickly. Families waited anxiously, some separated by diverted flights, others trying to comfort restless children as the hours ticked by. Supplies ran low, the cafe emptied, shelves grew bare, and the Wi-Fi slowed to a crawl as everyone tried to connect with loved ones. The airport, usually a place of reunions and excitement, became a holding pen of anxiety and restless energy. As the hours dragged on, resignation set in, people grew weary, their initial panic fading into exhaustion. People slumped in chairs, endlessly scrolling for updates that never seemed to come, searching for any sign of hope. The bear, once a spectacle that drew curious eyes, became the source of their collective misery and frustration. They just wanted it to end. The silence in the waiting area was suffocating, broken only by sighs and quiet conversations. Every canceled flight was a broken plan, another dream deferred, and another night spent in limbo. The community's isolation felt sharper than ever, the snowy landscape outside a reminder of how far they were from help. All anyone wanted was the sound of engines roaring to life and a return to normal, a chance to leave this ordeal behind. The control tower's confirmation triggered emergency protocols. Though no one had trained for a grizzly on the runway, safety was the top priority. All air traffic was halted. Airport police and fire crews established a perimeter, keeping the bear away from the terminal. Calls went out to local and state authorities. The Alaska Department of Fish and Game took charge. A wildlife biologist was dispatched, aiming for a humane solution. Lethal force was a last resort. The biologist needed to get close enough for a tranquilizer dart, a risky task. Staff tracked the bear's movements, relaying updates to the response team. Every minute the airport stayed closed, pressure mounted, supplies and medical flights were on hold. Officials had to balance urgency with safety for both people and bear. The community watched, waiting for a resolution. The stakes had never been higher. David Chen, a seasoned baggage handler, was going about his usual routine, loading a plane with luggage, when the unexpected call came over the radio to clear the tarmac immediately. He looked up and saw the bear, massive, curious, and far too close for comfort, lumbering across the open runway as if it owned the place. I locked myself in my tug. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe, he recalled, describing the adrenaline rush and fear that gripped him in that moment. From the control tower, Maria Flores watched the bear's every move, her eyes darting between the runways and her monitors, diverting incoming planes and relaying urgent updates to the ground crew. It was surreal, like a scene straight out of a movie, she said, still in disbelief at the wild visitor disrupting their day. Inside the terminal, tourists pressed against the glass, filming the spectacle with their phones, torn between awe, excitement, and a tinge of fear at witnessing such a rare event. "You come to Alaska hoping to see a bear, but not to have one shut down your flight," said Sarah, a visitor, her voice a mix of humor and disbelief. The bear paused, stood tall on its hind legs, and for a brief moment the entire terminal fell silent, everyone holding their breath. Captain John Riley, the first pilot to spot the bear from the sky, described the moment. "We were on final approach when we saw it. There was no hesitation. I went around, safety first." "You train for all kinds of emergencies, but never for something quite like this," he admitted, shaking his head with a wry smile. The incident quickly became an unforgettable story, shared and retold by everyone involved, from staff to passengers. The wild had invaded the world of aviation, blurring the line between civilization and nature, and no one would forget it. The bear's presence was a stark reminder of Alaska's unpredictable, untamed nature, where the wild can appear at any moment. For a moment, time seemed to stand still, as if the entire airport was holding its breath. The airport, usually a place of order and schedules, was suddenly at the mercy of the wild, powerless to do anything but wait. Everyone waited anxiously, hoping for a safe and peaceful resolution, their eyes glued to the unfolding drama outside. The story of the bear on the runway would be told and retold for years to come, a legendary moment in Alaska's aviation history. The Utqiagvik grizzly incident sent shockwaves through Alaska's aviation community. It exposed a vulnerability few had considered. Even reinforced fences can fail. The FAA and NTSB launched an inquiry, aiming to prevent future wildlife incursions. The event highlighted the unique challenges of operating airports in the wilderness. New recommendations would likely include stronger fencing, advanced detection systems, and more frequent inspections. These upgrades come at a cost, tough for small airports. The incident also prompted a review of emergency protocols and the need for rapid response teams. The goal: smarter coexistence between aviation and nature. Safety isn't just about machines, it's about respecting the environment. The image of a grizzly on the runway became a symbol for the unpredictable challenges of Alaskan aviation. The lesson: vigilance is key. After 4 tense hours, the wildlife biologist got close enough for a tranquilizer dart. The grizzly staggered, then slumped to the ground. Relief swept through the terminal. The bear was safely transported deep into the tundra and released. With the runway clear, staff inspected for damage. The airport roared back to life. The first flight departed just after 3 p.m. Operations ran late into the Arctic evening to clear the backlog. Passengers left with an unforgettable story and new respect for Arctic travel. Management quickly reinforced the fence and increased patrols. The incident became a benchmark for wildlife hazard management. The wild's power was undeniable, but professionalism prevailed. The future of Alaskan aviation will be shaped by that day. In the Great Land, nature always has the final say, and vigilance is the key to safe coexistence.